All right, we can go ahead and get started. It's like we don't have quorum.
I think we do.
Hey, we have quorum. Excellent. Yeah, and it looks like Eileen also has some sick kids, so. All right, so I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. We can do roll call.
All right. See here, Eileen is absent. Bessie?
Here?
Jonathan?
Here.
James?
Here.
Mike?
Here.
Michelle? Colleen? Lisa?
Here.
Howard? Caitlin? And Karen said that there were two vacancies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is someone, is it just one? One person, on Monday. And another gentleman, John Cravens, I believe, was going to try to be here tonight, is interested in being on the committee as well.
Excellent, glad to hear there's interest. All right, no public comment, or agenda approval, sorry. So are there any suggested adjustments we make to the current agenda?
Is there something on the two grants? That I sent emails early in the week, or last week, to add updates on both grants onto the agenda.
Yeah, I saw those go through, and I thought Karen was going to add them, but we can go ahead if everyone agrees. Make a motion to.
Is there a new business or other business at the end? And if so, I'll just put it there.
We haven't.
Yeah, we don't really.
Have we finished the conversation about the landscaping, reducing that? Does that need to be on the agenda?
I saw landscaping somebody at the top.
What's that? Yeah, I can't
Is it
remember.
on there already?
There it is, 5B.
Yeah, so we'll talk about the boards.
Okay.
Except on-
It is right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. So make a motion to amend the agenda to add in the additional grant. Cool. All in favor?
Yes.
Excellent.
One quick thing.
Yeah.
I believe Eileen was supposed to take notes tonight.
Oh, yes, thank you for that.
So we need someone to.
Someone willing to volunteer?
I don't mind taking notes, but my work laptop has connectivity issues, so it's just
All right.
like this, so.
I did it once and took 2 weeks to get them out. They were not pleased. So. And I wrote them way too long, so.
Yeah, okay, I can do it. What's the,
Do you mind taking notes?
can you clarify my guidance for what I need to do here? Just notes of major motions and major discussion items, things like that.
Yeah.
So the motion was made by me and sorry. But I didn't hear a second.
And there's a video, so you can always.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah, if we really have to resort to
You don't
that.
get it.
Yeah.
But can we actually even vote on the agenda if we don't have a quorum? I have no idea.
No, you guys have quorum
We have a
now.
quorum.
Oh, we do.
We've got
I'm
5,
sorry.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought. Pardon me?
Yep. Just by a narrow margin, but we do. So yeah, just general notes on what takes place in the meeting, and then also, if you wouldn't mind just putting together like 3 sentences or so, summarizing the meeting to send to, should that go to Karen since she's out? Okay. That'd be excellent at the end of the meeting.
Motion to add updates on 2 grants to the agenda.
Oh.
By Skumont, seconded by, what's your last name?
Zarsky?
Zarsky. And then, I think unanimous.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I think you're caught up.
Excellent.
Does everybody have their
Thanks.
microphones on, by the way?
I do.
I think we all just turned them on.
I did
Looks
not,
like it.
thank you.
All right. Doesn't look like there's any public comment. Do you know if there's any newsletter items we should discuss? We can go through everything, but I don't know if there's anything pressing to scroll through just in case.
Why have we gone through this?
All right. Guess they probably know exciting newsletter items to discuss.
I did notice that the e-blast went out from the Girl Scouts. I think I got got that in an email, what, a day or two ago, something like that?
I also saw them posting on Nextdoor as well, which was great.
Excellent.
So they're going to be doing the fall leaf collection, which will be excellent. So next up is an update on the board's next steps for sustainable landscaping and EV charging. Do you want to talk to that? I can too, but it seems like you might be.
I can start and then you can,
Okay, sounds good.
we may have had different perspectives sitting in the same meeting. So we talked both sustainable landscaping and electric vehicle charging. Got maybe, 3-4 meetings ago now. Sustainable landscaping, I think once we finally got to the end of that conversation, there was general support amongst the board for starting with, quote, low-hanging fruit, maybe items in between roadways on the medians, removing grass there and putting in something more sustainable. I think more broad scale, it was let's see what ACES comes up with, and the consultant that was going to come in and talk with you guys and see what a potential path forward could look like. I think the rest of the board was trying to get a broader understanding of what this would look like on a large scale. The other concern was also the amount of staff time that could be devoted to it right now, with the director of Parks and Rec leaving, and just generally staff being fairly tight on projects. I think that was the other piece. And I think the board overall gave direction to not start looking at this until we get into the next year. Is that fair, Ezzy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would say too, just to add to that I think it sounds like there's, again, to reiterate your point, interest from the board in having ACES pursue some options for sustainable landscaping. So even though that might not be something they could actively pursue until next year, there still may be room for us to talk about different options that they could consider for next year.
Is it better for the landscaper to do these types of projects during the winter when there's not as much mowing and weeding and all that kind of stuff going on?
I have no idea. It's a good question.
I think generally plants tend not to be being planted in the winter, and so fall and spring are typically the best plants. So it's easier to if you're going to replace grass or something with gravel, then winter would probably be a good time. But if it's about moving towards more sustainable,
yeah, it might be
plants.
A mix of both. I was thinking more the latter, but if you're right, if it's going to be xeriscape, then springtime would be better.
Which was definitely one of the concerns with the board as far as what it would look like. Appearance, I think, was important. There were certain members of the board who I think were concerned that if you start removing the, quote, golf course type feel without replacing it with something that is just as nice aesthetically, that might be a problem. So I think the xeriscape thought process is where the majority of the board was probably going.
I mean, there are some medians there on Rock Creek Parkway that did get replaced with flagstone and rocks and so forth, and those aren't terrible looking either.
I agree.
I mean, I guess that's where it'd be great to have probably a landscape professional.
Exactly.
Advise maybe a mixed bag of lots of options, not just one. And certainly, we're not thinking just pave it over with asphalt or concrete.
Yeah.
We're not thinking that at all.
And Karen and I did chat with someone from a company called DuraRoot who had worked with the town board in the past. And he had a lot of really great suggestions around different ways to implement xeriscaping. And one of the interesting things that he pointed out is that in a lot of, if you just use rocks to landscape, oftentimes that actually can cause some maintenance challenges because you have weeds that also grow up through the rocks.
Yeah.
And then you need to use, either herbicides or have someone going out there by hand and pulling them all up, which can cause problems. And so in some ways it's actually easier from a maintenance perspective to go the route of more native plants and kind of the xeriscape approach, which can be lower maintenance in the long run.
Okay.
So I thought he had a lot of really great information to share, and I know he'd be happy to come present to ACES if that's something that's of interest for us. So
That'd be great.
yeah.
Yeah,
He had a
the other thought I had was if we do stuff on the median, which gets a lot of visual, people driving by it every day, is get the art committee involved and see if they could do some artwork along the median, along Rock Creek Parkway.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So maybe if you do an all-out paver stones or bricks, like on the Pearl Street Mall or something like that, where there's obviously not weeds growing up through that stuff, you could
Yeah,
do some artwork along there too.
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
There's also potential opportunities for, like the Xerces Society has certifications, I guess, for pollinator-friendly towns or cities. And
Yeah.
so if we move towards sustainable plantings, our XERAC and promote pollinators, then we could also say we're like a bee-friendly city, for example.
Yeah,
Do
that'd
those types of things, which would be great.
Yeah, that'd be great too.
So,
Okay. Right.
yeah.
I have a question. So so the trees that are along the median that goes up the hill, are those healthier now, or are they still dying repeatedly?
No idea.
If they're still dying, I wish we could put them out of their misery, you know, it's, and I was in a town where what they just had was, at the end of, breaks in the median or whatever, they just had a gigantic flower pot thing, just really big pot, a clay pot. And that seems fine, I don't know. So anyway, I think while I was on the board, they replaced them at least twice. It's just sad. So anyway.
I can't speak to those ones, but we did just have a similar conversation during the budget meeting. about
Over and
the
over
number-
again.
Yeah, I mean, every year. I mean, there's a standing budget line for replacing trees that we have dying.
And I mean, they are living things, it's just kind of sad to kill them.
Yeah.
I mean, put them there knowing they're going to die in 2 or 3 years. I mean,
It sounded like the priority for town staff this year was focusing on our ash trees. The emerald ash borer is knocking out, and then the other ones that are just dying from their age and just natural cycles. So I don't know if if these specific ones are at the top, but it's certainly worth the conversation.
anyway,
Yeah.
since you were talking about native species and things,
Yeah.
clearly that's either not a native species or not a native spot. So,
Yeah. No, that's a great point.
Electric vehicles. So this was an interesting conversation. It was an interesting conversation. Ultimately, there was mixed support for the different levels of requirements that were included in the proposed code changes. However, what we ultimately ended up hearing from our town attorney is that because we are not a home rule municipality, we don't actually have the ability to implement those code changes anyway. So at our next board retreat, which maybe it'll get scheduled before the end of the calendar year, maybe it'll be in January, one of the things the board will be discussing is whether to pursue becoming home rule. It's been talked about, I'm sure, since you were on the board.
it was then, yep. And yes, I was on a committee when I first moved here in about 2001, 2002 about it.
Yeah, I don't think it will ever drop off until eventually we finally become home rule.
It's one of those things that were raised until it finally passes because they don't give up otherwise, so.
Exactly. Well, and there's lots of different implications and benefits, and then there's costs, staff time and whatnot that goes into that. But if and until we become home rule, it's not something we can consider, per the attorney.
So Bowler, I assume, is home rule?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's when they can make their own codes.
Yep, exactly. And I will say that I've been asking the developers as they come up and do their presentations if they are including electric vehicle infrastructure within their development plans, and none of them are doing it as a requirement or as a standard feature, but they all are offering it as an optional feature, which is a little frustrating that they're not putting it in everywhere, but we can't force them to.
You mean they're offering it at whose option?
These aren't the commercial developers, it's the residential buyers.
Oh, the
So,
residential, I see.
Yep, the individual residents at their option. We haven't had a commercial developer come in recently, so that hasn't come up.
But you can, when you approve developments, you can require them to meet different standards, right?
I don't know that I would have enough
I don't mean you personally.
I know.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think I would have enough support from my fellow board members to include that as a
Yeah,
condition.
we do kind of stand out that way in the county as like the laggards on the energy stuff, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's too bad.
As you can attest to
have
the
for-
electric
we have for
vehicle
decades. It's no-
conversation,
Yeah.
there were some strong opinions in this realm that I wasn't necessarily expecting.
But we wouldn't want to inconvenience the businesses, you know.
Of course, it could be
Yeah.
a disincentive to coming to Superior.
It was also about government control as well, so,
It's ridiculous.
yeah.
Couldn't the town take a proactive approach and just start strategically installing chargers around the town center? Like you guys have already done at Community Park and here, and just start, or again, while it's dirt and not paved over, start dropping in the infrastructure on the town's
That'd be nice.
dime?
Put some internet in there too.
I don't honestly, it all depends on when the right-of-ways get dedicated to the town. As long as it's within their owners, the developer's ownership still, the answer would be no. But as soon as the right-of-ways get dedicated to the town, I don't see why not. Again, at that point, we'd be getting support from the rest of the board to spend that money. We haven't had that conversation. It would have to come out of you guys as a recommendation to go and do that. Again, I would encourage you guys to go back and watch the video so you can get a feel for where the board stood when this was discussed. Unless there's a very strong push from you guys, it would be a very hard argument for me to win with the other board members. At least that's my feeling.
In order to have the town directly fund?
To spend the money to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
If it's on the developer's dime and it's something that would go in ahead of time, I think we would have ultimately had enough support from the board to do at least some of the code changes. I would say probably 3 out of 4 was my feeling that night.
Agreed.
But on the town's dime, I think we might lose 1 or 2 people.
I guess my thought is, again, not necessarily full out, basically roughing them in, right? Is you wouldn't go install
Right.
10 chargers all across the thing, but, maybe rough in the 10 and install 1 or 2, and then you guys just do 2 every year for the next 5 years. And it doesn't impact the town's budget as much.
Yeah. I don't personally disagree with you.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
Just to continue on this item, I think, so one thing we had discussed in a prior meeting is that the developer for the main downtown core business area
Yep.
would be coming with their plan before the board sometime soon, and that was an opportunity for us to at least make a recommendation to the developer
Yeah.
that they include it, or just have, even if it's not there's no force behind the recommendation, just that it at least come
It
up
comes
from the town,
Yep.
from the committee to the board, and then hopefully from the board to the developer. And then we had heard that may come up as early as this month or even last month when we didn't have the meeting, or come to ACES in that time frame. But I haven't heard anything more.
Yeah. Looking at the calendars, it will definitely be something that you should have discussion on at your next meeting. I don't know if this meeting would have been too early, but my understanding is that at our first meeting in November, that's when we will be discussing it as a board. It'll come before us as a public hearing, so.
Is that after the ACES meeting next month?
You guys will just barely slip in. It'll be on we have a meeting canceled, that's what it is. Our first meeting is canceled in November, so we only have one board meeting in November, and that's on the 18th. Your meeting will be on the 14th. So your recommendation, the packet will already have gone out by the 14th, so it won't be in the staff memo. But if you guys were to look at it, make a recommendation, and then still provide that up to the board, it might have to be through email, and then that can be provided to the developer as well. That way they see it and it's still part of the public hearing process. I think that should work. But I'll talk to the town manager and our town attorney to make sure that we go through the proper steps, but you guys will meet before we see it, and that shouldn't preclude you from making a statement that we can't consider.
Thanks.
Would you be willing to email out whatever information you can at a time to the ACES group so we can take a look at it before the meeting?
So Karen should have that out for you guys. And that was something that got brought up, I want to say it was 1 or 2 meetings ago, in one of our board meetings. OSAC was looking at one of our developments and they didn't get it until the night of. So there was comments to make sure the committees get a chance to digest it more than just that night.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to have as much time as possible to make sure we can review it.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay, great. So so one opportunity is for us to exert some influence is to make that recommendation for next month.
Absolutely.
And then the other one, which maybe we'll come back to when we talk about Partners in Energy, is just that Excel as a business does have their own abilities to fund electric infrastructure related to these, especially if we put in some really high power, or if we recommend some very high powered electric charging that requires them to upgrade the utilities. They've got some other ways they can pay for that. And so the other thing that we should consider in the context of Partners in Energy is working with Excel to develop recommendations that they could co-fund, especially if we could find some really, really great stuff that might be very expensive, if they could fund it.
Great idea.
Okay.
All right, any additional comments on the landscaping or EV charging? Okay. I think we can skip the green business updates since Caitlin's out. But if we want to talk about the grants instead, right now, I think this might be good.
That's the first one I didn't see the Partners in Energy one right there, right under that 6B.
Yeah.
Okay, so 6B. So
Okay, we can do that too.
we have we won, I guess, kind of won the ability to work with Excel on their Partners in Energy program. And that was when the people came and spoke about, gee, they have a number of communities, and each community they try to put together an energy plan for the community and work with the community, give them, work with them on either stakeholder engagement or supporting, providing supporting material and collateral for, education. And the part that interested me, partly because, the rest of it, is useful, but they didn't really stress that they would pay for collateral. I got more of that on the call. But that when they could provide data so that we could actually see what works and how well it works in our town, that became more interesting, because that's always a barrier in utilities don't want to give out data. You can't do experiments in your town because you can't get data. So when they said that, it kind of energized me, and I wanted to, and I think we all agreed that would be a fun thing to go after and that we could really learn something from it. So we wrote a grant, the application that was required, and we got it. And so we've had a couple of phone calls about that. And one of the things, they would also like to see us do commercial, and then we'll talk about other things that they'd like to see us do. I wanted to make sure that we had data to do the core thing we talked about, which was the residential comparison group, so we could find out what would work. And I also said in the grant, gee, we'd also like to do commercial the same kind of way. There's been a little bit of push-pull about whether or not they have the commercial data, or whether or not we have big enough commercial sector to do it and still maintain secrecy, that they not be able to identify who the people were. But we're not talking about individuals. We're talking, like for the residential ones, we're talking about a whole neighborhood, a number for a whole neighborhood in this month, a number for a whole different neighborhood in a different month. So kind of we're looking for the group of commercial in group. So I'm not sure we're going to get it, but in any case, it looks like we'll be able to do the core part. And then they're interested in us expanding beyond that. They'd like to see us do, and Essie brought up a couple of really good ones. He thought that part of the plan might be this EV thing. And I think that's a great thing to add to it. I can't remember the other idea that you raised in it.
Excel's looking at doing some smart meter rollouts, and so seeing if that could be potentially part of this partnership, seeing if we could get new energy data or smart meters installed in the town center or something along those lines. So
if you have some thoughts about particular areas you'd like to see us, see the commit, and the whole committee is involved in this. We'll have updates at all meetings and that sort of thing. But if there are other particular topics you think we should explore, commercial and res are some, obvious things. I think EV is a great ad. I think the smart meters is a great ad. If you have some other sort of area you particularly think that we should be, asking them to help us provide the plan for, we should go ahead and do that. Anybody have any quick hit things? Otherwise, you're welcome to send emails or whatever. I don't expect you to tell me stuff off of, and I was going to then talk about the design and stuff as well, but.
Yeah, no, the only thing I was going to add is that they did say that they're looking at switching over to a new provider for home energy reports.
Right.
Moving away from Opower and looking towards something that's a little bit more in-depth. And so there might be opportunities to work with us and test out different sort of behavioral approaches.
And that's
with
why I
different
think this
communities.
experiment will really work, because this experiment will say what actually works here.
Yeah.
Not just, because, I don't know if you look at those messages, but they talk about being tailored, and they're lame. They're, turn your thermostat down or up 2 degrees. Give me a freaking break. That's useless. Everybody knows that,
I think the first ever meeting I had with the town board ended up kind of mocking those home energy reports.
Yeah,
the
they're
current Opower ones.
they're ridiculous. They act like they're this big secret, and they're
Yeah.
joke. So anyway, I would like it to be a little more tailored than that sort of,
Yeah, absolutely.
ridiculous stuff. So that's one of the reasons that, So that's one of the things I think this measurement can get us, if we can do some, especially if we can get the data in real time, which is one of the things I really would like to push for, not this wait till it's all done in 6 months thing, but if we do a wave and something works really well, I want to know that, so we get some feedback and inform sort of the next wave. That's why I would really like that real-time data. So anyway, we're still working on trying to get, really the main thing we get out of them is the data. They lately raised that maybe they could help with some of the collateral, but frankly, I'm trying to get the max use we can get out of them as opposed to the minimum, which is where they seem to be starting. So anyway, I've been pushing a little bit, maybe a little too hard. I'll back off a little bit, but anyway, got to get it started. So anyway, the design that we have in mind for the residential one is kind of the core thing that we submitted and committed to doing was we've gathered a map of the town. They want to know what neighborhoods we're looking at. So we're looking for Dana's been doing a lot of work on this, 3 very similar neighborhoods that are single family, the condos and whatever. We don't have enough neighborhoods of condos to make that be part of it. Contiguous neighborhoods that are 3 neighborhoods, one that gets not treated at all, one that gets a bit of messaging, and then the third that maybe that gets that plus door to door, or 2 different kinds of messaging. We're not quite sure. We'll see where we all decide. But anyway, 2 different treatment neighborhoods, and then we'll get that monthly data from each of those neighborhoods from Excel. And given that this is going to run it, I would say about 6 months was our original plan. So that gives us a chance to do at least 2 waves of stuff. And a lot of interesting, we did a similar experiment in Broomfield, and there were some things that really worked well. Challenges and that sort of stuff where you give everybody who's on the winning streak, a $5 Starbucks card, and oh my God, it got them to move from 6% to 60% signing of a commitment card. Silly things like that work. Another thing that worked was finding a 3-day weekend in the period and calling people and saying, hey, this is your home sealing weekend. You can get the material, here are the materials that you need to get, and you can do it yourself and whatever. And oh my God, and I'm going to call you back next week to see if you got a chance to do it. It was amazing how, those silly social marketing things actually do work. So, and that's not, Opower, turn your thermostat up. So anyway, so that's the plan. I should have those maps, a suggestion or a draft of those maps ready in the next couple of days. We were busy working on this other report today, so we didn't get that part of it done. And I'm keep your fingers crossed. I'm hoping we can convince them ultimately to do the commercial as well, because I think that we won't be able to have lots of different neighborhoods, but if we can have monthly data, we can do some stuff to the commercial folks and see if it works just before and after, even if it's not a control group and all that jazz. So anyway, that's what we're doing, and we have to sign an MOU, and ACES is the lead, so not really the town. So the town designated us to be the lead on it. So we're the team. So is that a fair assessment?
Yeah.
All right. And so I'm on the calls, and Essie's also on the calls, so, yeah.
What do you think is the ultimate goal of Partners in Energy?
What do I think, what?
What's the ultimate goal? Is it just to save
The
energy
ultimate
across
goal
the
for,
board?
yeah, the ultimate goal for me, and I thought the committee, was let's find the best ways to get the town to save energy, to motivate residential energy saving behaviors and equipment installations and whatever all we can make them, get them to do. The goal beyond that Xcel Energy has is, and like I said, I would like to see that for commercial and res, but what Xcel Energy wants to do is have energy plans in place for most of the communities in the state. And so they want an energy plan, and so this would go into an energy plan. That's relatively fair?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Excel gets out of it is deeper community engagement and trying to drive their DSM, demand side management programs. So, yeah.
And I think there are some people that are ahead of getting energy plans, so they get, another energy plan, which is,
Yeah.
That's,
Could some of these things lead to needing to make changes to the code, the energy code, which gets back to the home rule thing? I mean, if we're really gonna drive some of these things.
Excel doesn't have that power.
No, I'm talking about us.
Oh, yeah.
I was part of the town of Superior's energy plan. To start, like what Boulder has done, you have to exceed the current code by 30%, on new construction, that
This
kind
is
of
meant to
stuff.
be our energy plan. We can put in our energy plan what we want, and
But I'm just saying, because we're not home ruled, are we gonna hit a roadblock on that?
A lot of the other communities that have done Partners in Energy are focused more just on efficiency, so setting an efficiency goal and helping the community as a whole become more efficient. So it's about like absolute reductions in energy consumption
But-
more so than like driving.
That's voluntary, right?
Yeah,
not,
What I'm talking about is writing something into the code that, like if someone's gonna do a major renovation, like in Boulder, okay, you gotta meet the current energy code
that
too.
green code, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Correct.
And we adopted that code for residential many years ago, and I don't know if it's been updated to keep track with them, but it was outside of,
did a couple years ago.
IECC.
Yeah.
So it was more stringent than IECC, and it passed, so
Well,
I
there's
think we may have more authority than you're thinking.
Personally, I don't agree with the position our attorney took.
You don't believe what,
I don't agree with the position that our attorneys told us.
oh, they told you that the thing they passed is nonsense?
No. We don't have the authority to update these codes. But we haven't had an opportunity to actually talk about it in another meeting. It hasn't been agended, and we haven't had a retreat to add it. So all I've seen is a few sentences from our attorney saying, no, we cannot do this.
You might just ask about, well, we did it, some years ago, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've given her that
And we fought over, every, bit of it, because, yeah.
I mean, my point is that a part of this is voluntary, right? But I think a part of it needs to be written into our code too. For when people upgrade this and that, we got a lot of empty commercial office or commercial space sitting over there. When the TI happens on those spaces, then they need to meet a certain energy code, that kind of stuff too. And that should be all part of our energy plan, right?
I think we should make all those kinds of
All of it, yeah.
recommendations in the energy plan.
Yeah.
What it does after that, I can't guarantee. The lawyer apparently has a role in
Yeah.
it, so.
Yeah. But couldn't we,
Not to mention the board.
couldn't we consult with our neighboring towns?
We
and
don't,
how they've
we aren't even
passed?
close. We aren't even close to Louisville, Boulder, Longmont. They're all ahead of us
Yeah.
by a long shot.
But how
It's
they
kind
got
of
over these
embarrassing.
hurdles?
Most of them are home rule.
Yeah, the majority are home
We're
rule.
one of two
So that's-
non-home
okay.
rule
Yeah,
towns in the
okay.
state,
So
right?
that is the hurdle.
There's more that are statutory still, but the
Yeah.
majority in our area,
Not
I'm pretty
many.
sure are home rule.
Okay.
It's also interesting seeing how some of the different advisory committees are set up in different areas too.
Maybe
It sounds like-
we were one of the two largest or something, I don't know.
Yeah. Like Longmont, for example, it sounds like their advisory committee around sustainability has a lot more direct power to implement change versus kind of the way we're set up. So it's interesting seeing those too.
Okay.
I have a coworker who's on the Longmont advisory group, so we've had some interesting discussions.
You want me to talk about the other grant as well?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay, so,
Just before we do that, one more comment on Partners in Energy. So you guys, it sounds like you two are in discussion with them regularly. Is that what I understood?
um,
That-
Yes, I was
Okay.
the lead contact, and yes.
Great, excellent. So just to follow on the earlier thread about the EVs, I have a few more specific thoughts, which I'll send you in an email.
Great.
That I think suggestions for what you could ask them about. And then I'm interested to hear how that goes. Since I understand the Partners in Energy team may be different people than the actual electric vehicle people at Excel. And so if you find that the Partners in Energy people are not super engaged or helpful in
They seem
identifying.
kind of generalists, yes.
Yeah, I mean, if they say, I don't know if we can do that, whatever, then I think we should start with them since we're talking with them. My offer would be that I have other professional contacts with people who do EV work, and if we're unsuccessful with the first route, then we can just ask them outside of the program. I'm going to email the whole group these questions.
And Essie, I think in there, we should try to get stuff in, like, if the town achieves some goal, like, 5% reduction or something, maybe we get, some kind of incentive out of Excel. I mean, why not ask? So, anyway,
Yeah, that sounds good.
they can say no, but, we can put it in our plan. That's our recommendation.
Worth trying.
Okay, so this other thing is very much a work in progress. Those of you who have been on for a while may remember that we went after a grant that Boulder County was giving out and we wanted to fund some waste sorts. Boulder County said, well, you might have a much better chance of winning this thing if you did the waste sorts. We were going to do a contract for waste sorts. And then they said, well, we actually have a countywide waste sort company that's just coming in to do this. And we could add you guys as designated, samples. And I said, well, that's okay, but, we have a lot more control if it's our own contract. But they said, oh, this is the way you need to go. But that's all right, because then, we got waste sorts. Well, what we didn't get was the control that we needed. And in fact, they screwed up on one and whatever. But in any case, we did get, but we had to do a matching. So we said we would do a bunch of other things. Like one of the reasons we wanted to do the waste sort, two of the reasons we wanted to do the waste sorts were, one, we wanted to find out where our town was doing well and where it was screwing up. For like contaminants, do they know what's really supposed to be recycled and what's wishful and all that sort of stuff. And two, we wanted to construct a metric so that we could put it on that metric thing that we've been doing, the sustainability metric dashboard, that's the word I'm looking for. And with something that's a little bit more more immune to things like economic shifts and all that sort of stuff that can make recycling rates go up and down for nothing you did badly on your program. So there's another metric called the percent recoverables remaining, but to do that you need a waste sort. So those were the sort of the two main motivations. So what we did was we had a chance to do 2 seasons of sorts so that we could do a pre-education in the middle and a post to see if we had some changes in the contaminants. And we said we would show the county what outreach we did and how we were successful or not successful and all that sort of jazz. This report is our first working draft on these results, and we have more graphs than we do analysis right now. But in any case, and more charts. We have the only things that we can show in here are pre for the town, the original town, post for original town, and post for HOA. They messed up getting any of the HOA samples the first time for the first one. I call them a million times, explain it, and they still don't get it. But anyway, and lots of difficulties. But in some of the cases, we reported all 3 because in a sense, we have the pre-post, but we also have seasonal differences. So the first one's in December, the second one's in June. So you wouldn't expect things to be all together the same and all that. Yard waste is different. So in a sense, the HOA thing gives us a little bit of a benchmark for that season as well. So you can look at it a little bit that way. If you go to pay, so we did, we had to do matching time, and part of it is time, but part of it is I contributed toward the material, the collateral that we handed out, and I also paid for my staff to go around and give it, like knock on doors and deliver the stuff to meet the matching requirement. You can see that we have tables for sort of overall what the waste stream consisted of. Then the next batches are the percentages of materials of various types that remained in the trash and the recycling. And so the first set of columns is trash, second set of columns is recycling, and it, in color, you'd see that it's gray on the left and blue on the right to kind of get your mind around it. So we had some materials that went based on the first sort, things that people were messing up on. And so we targeted those in the education. We put little asterisks next to those materials. So you could see, gee, what materials did we target in the education? And see how we did. Figure 1.7 shows kind of how many things we got better on and how many things we got worse on. On trash, we weren't really trying to get better on trash, really. Our focus was on recycling. And because you can't unambiguously say whether more an increase or a decrease in something going into the trash is a good thing or a bad thing. Because yes, you want it out of the recycling, but wouldn't you rather have it waste reduced or brought to charm or, whatever else? So sometimes I put depends because I didn't even know what to do with, I didn't know what to do with it exactly on the trash side, and I'll work on that some more. But on the recycling side, overall, we got, of the 18 materials that we said something about targeting, 14 of them improved in the pre versus the post. So that's not bad. The only bad thing is this was a cheap, low-cost study, so there are big confidence intervals around the things, and they only sent me the averages, so I asked them for the confidence intervals again. So we'll see how many we actually get improvements in. But they are indicative results that things looked good. A few things were kind of sad. I was sorry to see that we didn't do better in OC in cardboard, but what are you gonna do? On page 5, you see the materials that we handed out. What we did there was really try to focus on don't do the wishful things so that we can get people to stop putting plastic bags in and putting their recycling in plastic bags, which are both big, big problems. And people didn't know what to do with some stuff. I mean, off the top of your head, do you think everybody knows what to do with shred? Well, it's paper, shouldn't it go in there? That sort of thing. So we've tried to focus on things that people might be confused about. Shred was one. What about tin foil? What about the caps on things? Are you supposed to leave the caps on, the plastic ones, the glass ones? What the heck? So we tried to come up with the problem things that we could correct once and for all. When my staff were out in the field, they found people saying, they stopped them and said, yeah, I really like this, or they sent back in the survey, I really like this, this was exactly what I was confused about, so that was helpful. That's what we focused on for the education and got those kind of results. And then we also did a survey that we funded as well with some rewards for people to fill it in. Bad news is, of course, there are only 171 homes in Original Town, and you can usually count on about a 3% response rate, and we didn't get much different from that. So it's not a whole, not like this 380 responses. We got like 40, and so it's not great statistics, but anyway, we get some indicative results again. It's the best you can do, right? So those show which things went up and down. And in order to interpret those slides, they're on, when you read them at your leisure on 6, 7, whatever, you'll see which things are good versus bad. But in the title, it says the goal here is 0%. In other words, we don't want them to do that, so going up would be bad. On the top of other ones, it says goal 100%, so going up in the second one would be good. So that gives you some idea of what direction we're looking for. I have yet to, and you'll see the survey results individually as you go forward. I still have 2 sections to even get drafted. One of them is the one on the PRR metric, and that's a pretty easy one. I just have to add some stuff together out of the waste sort, and then the next steps. So those 2 things are missing at the back, and that's the deal. And then I have to submit. We have to put this together, and I'd love your review after I get you one that's not as draft as this one is, but might be interesting results for you in the interim. So we'll circulate around the next draft that's a review draft, and you guys can edit away. And I'll include in that the matching statistics that we have to have and all that jazz to show that we match the grant funding. That's it. And it gave us, so we only distributed the material to Original Town, but this gives us the idea on which things we should focus on for the rest of town when we do our next outreach on recycling. Thanks. It's about as fast as I could do it, sorry.
There's a lot here.
Yeah.
I have to look at that.
This is great though.
Thanks.
Lisa, quick question. Did I hear you right earlier saying that it is draft form, but is it expected to change the report
yes.
itself? Okay. Excellent.
Definitely.
Okay. Just checking.
Some of my improve and unimproved, I have to think about that a little bit more in some cases where it's like, okay, what am I gonna put for styrofoam? Yeah, I do want it in the trash, so I wanted to go up in trash and down in recycling, but wouldn't I rather have them maybe bring it to Charm? What should I call that? So anyway, those sorts of things, and,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, there's great info here, and I was just thinking to myself,
Not to be shared,
when is the appropriate time to share it?
not to be shared.
Excellent.
One,
Future meeting.
yeah, a question, you may have said this and I probably missed it. Is there an overall result for the percent recoverables remaining between the pre and post test?
That's what I've yet to
We don't
calculate.
have
It's a
that.
really easy calculation, but I just didn't, I was just slammed, I just didn't get to it today.
Okay, understood, thank you.
So as part of the grant, you had to put this report together? Is that the
Part of
requirement? Did the grant require that you had to put this
I
together?
have to put a report together for them, yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
This is more than they probably asked for, but too bad. We needed it anyway.
Thanks so much for doing all this work.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments on any of these things, Partners Energy or the grants or? Okay. Jumped out to the fall leaf collection program. So we kind of discussed this earlier in the news, in the kind of updates section, but yeah, the Girl Scouts are going to go and offer to pick up people's leaves. I don't remember off the top of my head what day that will be, but they've been promoting it really widely on
Is it
Facebook
20th,
and
maybe?
social media. Yeah, that sounds vaguely familiar, but
I forget what day it was.
we can check. But yeah, so they're gonna take all the leaves and then take them down to the organics waste down by the dog park. So that'll be great to see how that program works out this year. Any other questions or comments about that? Okay. So we can jump down to the scorecard and adding specific examples of how to improve sustainability in different aspects.
Yes, I have thoughts, I'm also taking notes.
Yeah, I'll let you.
When's the next update to that? I can probably calculate this pretty quick, so.
Well, I mean, let's discuss now broadly what our intention is. The scorecard, so we have a scorecard, we have the complete data in it. Some of it, there may be some updates already available from other data. Welcome your data whenever
Okay.
it's available.
You can have within the next week anyway.
Yeah,
I know.
sure. The two things, when we shared it with the town board several months ago, there were some specific feedback on, how data was presented, some of which has already been incorporated. But the other main point of feedback was that it would be great if there was information included with it for the public as to what actions they could take if they wanted to improve on some score. So if it was energy use per household, what are some easy actions that a resident could take? So that was a point of feedback we heard from the town board. We, shortly after that, I circulated a Google Doc to this committee, inviting input kind of item by item and what some of those might be. So we could discuss some of those briefly now. We could also add more later. Just I think overall where we are is, yeah, we should get enough of those that we have something to add and then compile it into one document. And then I think we go back to the town board and ask them, I think what we ask for is just their endorsements of the document so that it's still something that we kind of own and maintain. We get town staff's help as needed, but, and then, we can use it in sort of a somewhat official capacity. We could print it out at town events or hand it to people and things like this, and maybe have the town post it on the website somewhere.
Or the newsletter?
When-
Put it in a newsletter, yeah. These
Yeah,
are the
that'd be
types
great.
of things we would do with it. I think in order to get there, we have to make this update and go back to the town and ask their endorsement.
I think you have a pairing, baseline and a new value, is that right?
A baseline.
So that we know how much we've improved, there's a baseline.
Yeah,
and a
wherever
new-
we have it, and in some cases, we came up with something new, so we only have one data point.
Right, but going forward, you'll have two.
That's right.
And the only thing I was what would be really helpful is to make sure you put a tiny little date underneath, for when when you made when that baseline was and when the latest one is.
Yep.
That would be great.
Is there a plan is the plan
Because they'll update at different times, you know?
to update it annually, is that?
I think annually is the right,
Yeah.
is the right amount. And now as we're getting started, I think we should just get something that's, complete that we can start using. Different data sources come at different times of the year. We're going to
Yeah.
figure it out. We're kind of doing this ourselves for now. Maybe at some point in the future, it's something that town staff could do, but for now, it's us. I think, yeah, roughly the idea is annually.
Great. And where are you getting the info on energy use by the town? Because maybe this PIE thing will get it for us
Well,
if you don't have
Excel
the data
already
on it.
publishes, Excel publish, they have a website
Okay,
for every town they serve in Colorado that has community energy reports. They
with
put out every
res
year.
separate from commercial or together or
Residential
what?
and commercial separate,
Cool.
and they break down, they have a good amount of data on their, total energy use, number of customers,
Thanks.
year over year, amount of solar energy produced under some different customer programs.
Cool,
How many people buy the wind energy, things like that.
cool,
Yeah.
thanks.
So that's incorporated.
Did we finalize all the metrics on the scorecard? Is that kind of done at this point?
I think we did, yeah.
There's a few others that jumped into my mind is percent houses that have PV on them in our town.
I remember you raising that, I think, before, yeah. We thought that
Maybe
some
number
measure
of
on that
electric vehicles
should be in
over the
there.
town?
And maybe
Yeah,
we have a
so-
primary scoreboard and then other interesting stuff is a second sheet or something like that that
Yeah,
isn't,
I'm
yeah.
just
So that
throwing
we don't
ideas out.
overwhelm
Yeah.
the board for what can get, for those who are interested in more detail yet.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm responding.
Because I know you've been working on this format for quite some time.
Yeah, so to respond to those points, so the percent electric vehicles is on there.
Okay, we got that.
We don't have the data yet. We actually probably could get an interim data point. We have to get it from the county, who gets it from the DMV. And they were not tracking it until like August of last year, so we don't have a long history of data, but we have at least 1 year's worth. So they can see everyone who's registered a vehicle over the course of 12 months and see what percentage of those registrations are electric vehicles.
Yeah.
Cool,
So that's a new one. We'll only have one data point.
that's fine. And PV, percent PV?
What we have is percent of the total energy. So we've got this mixed metric from the energy we get from Excel, the people who buy the wind stuff, the people who buy the community solar, the people who have solar on their roofs, the town solar on the roofs. We have, taking all this into account, we have what percentage of the electricity is renewable
Got it.
overall. So that's, and because there's a high amount of solar usage in our town relatively, our number is a little bit higher than Excel's statewide average number. basically.
Yay.
Because we have more than the average of
I think our income's a tad higher as well.
PV, yeah. So that contributes.
Might be related, yeah.
We have not so far gathered what percentage of buildings have solar. We might be able to add that at some point. That would require us to figure out some new data.
I'm wondering if the
Yeah.
PIE might be able to supply that.
I think we should, any metrics
Yeah.
that you all want to see, I think we should try to get them from them as part of this plan.
Yeah.
Really, I was really interested in the fact that we get data from a utility, which is really, really hard to get.
Yeah, I think actually that's a good one. I can confirm, but I believe, okay, here's what you can ask them. So if you go and you say, I want to put solar on your roof here, with Excel, there's two different options. You can do the solar rewards, where they give you a little bit of money and they buy the renewable credit from you. Or you can do it without that, where you get to sort of keep your renewable credits. In the data they publish, they only show how many people have the first kind
Oh, man.
and not the second kind.
Sucks.
But you could probably they should know how many solar systems are interconnected in the town, and you might be able to get
We'll
that
try to
from
push
them.
for
That would be
that. Thanks.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If there are other ones that you think you'd like, we'll just try to work them in.
okay. Great. Okay, well, the thing to discuss now, let's see, what's the best way to, we probably have not enough time to go through every one, but it's probably worth at least showing what this is.
6E, is
Um,
that what we're talking about?
Well, no, we're on 6D, so
Okay.
examples of ways to improve sustainability. Or I'll tell you what, maybe well, I don't know if it's worth trying to get it up on the screen, it's gonna be a whole thing. But I can resend the link.
Yeah, did you
That'd be
get
great.
That'd be great.
much feedback on
I
it?
got a couple
I just-
items.
I think I-
Probably we need a little bit more.
That was a while ago.
And I haven't added my own, so, why don't we say this, I'll resend it, I'll read you some examples right now, just so you get a sense,
In the,
and then I'll resend it, so,
okay, got it.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that'd be, oh, I didn't notice that one, so.
Yeah, so like, for example, the first one is climate change and greenhouse gas emissions, so the prompt would be like, what individual actions would we list for ways that people can reduce greenhouse gas emissions? And the ones in here are about using alternatives to driving, so taking the bus, walk, riding a bike. Or if you are driving or replacing a gasoline vehicle with an electric vehicle, we could add others to that category as well. For renewable energy, installing solar on your home is what's listed here. We could probably add a couple other things. We talk about home energy audits for energy efficiency, low flow shower heads and faucets for water, for this air ozone thing where we're out of compliance with the EPA in the whole region, not mowing your lawn on the ozone alert days, et cetera. These are the things that are in here.
Yeah, right, mulching.
Well, no, I think-
Or buying an electric lawnmower, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think I'd like to push hard for that. Is 90% of our lots are small, and a battery-powered lawnmower is a no-brainer. And I'm speaking from experience.
Oh, yeah, no, they're great.
Yeah.
I mean, it comes with 2 batteries, and 90% of the time I can mow both the front and back on 1 battery
Cool.
charge.
Didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
And they're quiet. You
And
don't
it's a
have to- you don't-
battery, it's not even, that's not the cord thing anymore.
No cord, battery
Thanks.
powered, you don't have to wear ear protection or anything. They're
Wow.
lighter.
Nice.
So if you have steps to go up and down into the backyard and
Thanks.
stuff, you're not dragging this big gasoline engine up and down. I mean, I think actually people might be pleasantly surprised and even happier with an electric
Yeah.
lawnmower.
And the batteries are normally applicable to other tools.
And those
Yeah, and if you as long as you get the right ones, the
Yep.
same battery is compatible with your,
Yeah, it's
The
great.
weed-
saw
Weed
and,
whacker, everything.
And we're wind power, so then it wouldn't even be, it always troubles me to have the electric things when there are emissions coming out of it, why do we just ignore the emissions coming out of the power plant? That peeves me.
Well-
So at least if I'm wind, then I don't have to do that, right?
Yeah.
yeah, if you, that's great, yeah.
We bought the.
Plus this,
And we
you
have
know,
solar, so on our roof.
the whole state's electric grid is getting cleaner very quickly. Okay, so,
But you were looking for more ideas to be sustainable?
So we should,
Those are-
if
Yeah,
you send that
basically,
around,
we
why don't
just
you send
need-
it around and we can do that?
we need to list a few more ideas. This is
Sure.
what the board asked us to do. so.
We'll do that.
Yeah, and I would love, you'll see in there's 2 columns.
Take
The one the
those.
town actually asked for is what individual people can do. I would love for us to at least have a list of what we think the town could do.
That's a good idea.
So that we have stuff that we can propose.
Good.
Because the town board should also take a leadership position on these in addition to just asking individuals to do it themselves, so. So I'm going to email that,
And when you
then-
say individuals, we should think businesses too, but yeah,
We should think businesses too, yeah.
just FYI. But we don't need a separate column for that. I think it's okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I'm done. I'm going to catch up here on the notes, and you guys can move to the next agenda item, I think.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much.
So you're gonna share that document again? Or,
Yeah, why don't
Not
you?
on, you're not gonna
I'm
share it on Google, are you?
It is on Google.
I don't do Google Docs at all. If you can make a document and email it to me, I'll mark it up. I don't do bulletin boards.
You can export from
I
Google
don't
Docs.
do bulletin boards. What?
You can export from Google Docs into like a Word doc.
I'll have to have my staff do it. It's not me. There are certain things I just don't do
Okay,
because they
I'm
remind me of
gonna-
old school bulletin boards that are
I'm
in
gonna
my
set
mind
you
as
up.
hateful.
I got you. I'm
Do you remember
linking it
bulletin
and
boards?
attaching it.
The modem and it wouldn't connect and you had to get the proposal out? Oh my God, never again.
I think the other thing we really big push on is the.
I want a PC because it's not shared.
Controllers too.
Yeah. So we've got awesome rebates available for those, and no one knows them, so.
And then even the toilets, the pressure assist toilets,
Yeah,
with our rebate, it costs me $25 to replace our toilet.
yeah, that's awesome.
Brand new toilet. Anyways.
All right, so final item is investigating ways to promote alternative transportation and potentially working with other advisory committees to make it easier to use. So this is something that came up a while back, I don't remember how long, but The idea being that especially with all the new downtown development and everything else and the new trails, you know, are there ways that we can help promote whether it's biking or alternative transportation in various forms, and maybe work with some of the other advisory committees to highlight, you know, some of our trails that we have and some of the different options that residents have when commuting. So.
Give out free bus passes.
Get a train here.
A light rail.
Have Faster come through. Yes.
I think maybe this one might make a little more sense to wait on for a bit longer until the downtown's a little more finalized. I don't know, what does everyone else think?
Where did this come from?
This was on our work plan.
Oh, got it.
Originally, so
Okay.
this is sort of the next thing that we had on our work plan that we hadn't discussed yet for Q4. I think originally some of the ideas that had come up included, you know, maybe working with some of the bike to work events or things like that to add some additional education around town trails and all that stuff. And I know we already do some of that, so we need to figure out what we currently do and what we could do above and beyond that. I think one of the other ideas was like a bike-led tour of downtown whenever that's completed, and kind of, you know, show people all the different bike paths and stuff, and do kind of a grand tour of Superior. So.
Just to throw another mode of transportation out there when this is considered in the future, the Flex Ride. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the RTD Flex Ride. It used to be called the Call-In Ride. They rebranded it recently.